Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Youtini Show, your one-stop shop for all things going on in Star Wars. I'm Eric here with Corey and Wes, and tonight we got a bunch to get into. As always, Star Wars Celebration Japan has released its panel schedule. Knights of the Old Republic is still alive, but Hunters is not. And did George Lucas really make a sexy, violent show? The answer is yes. But now, last week, before we get to that, we talked about the 4 main panels coming to Star Wars Celebration next month. But this week, Star Wars gave us all the details as the full panel schedule was released, with everything from Celebration main stage events to fan panels and even live podcasts. Now, alongside the panels themselves, we also received the exact times for all the panels, so you can even start making your own personal schedule, as well as news that Star Wars Live will be returning to help some of us here keep up with the action on YouTube. Now, Corey, before we get back into the panels themselves, let's do the fun thing and chat logistics. We all love logistics. Now that we know that every celebration day will be starting at 10 a.m. local Japan time, which is 9 p.m. Eastern the previous day, how do you think this is going to affect the overall coverage of the event? Does this essentially put Celebration in prime time?
Yeah, it's really interesting that that's sort of happened. I mean, I wish I wish we had like recorded our meetings we've had internally, like trying to figure out how to cover
Yeah.
this because like it's honestly a disaster for us internally. Because like not only is it at a crazy time, Eric has got a wedding this weekend and he's like our lead content creator and senior writer and that's going to be a mess. It's also, we have some really amazing talent in the Philippines that helps us as well, and it's like a huge Filipino holiday that weekend too. So like, it's just going to be a really big mess. And us trying even just to figure out the difference in time zones, we got it wrong like 4 different times. Even though we're
Yep.
looking at calculators and stuff online, like
Because then daylight
yeah,
savings happened, so everything that we had calculated first was actually off by an
off,
hour
terrible.
because but now we have a
It's a
chart.
mess.
There is an Excel sheet
Now we have a chart.
that
We have an Excel sheet. We
so,
understand exactly what the coverage is going to look like finally. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. During the evening time is literally ideal for
yeah.
Americans. It's going to be really interesting, particularly if you're in central or earlier time. Even then, it's going to be at a pretty reasonable time of the day. So it's gonna be cool. I imagine the live streams are probably gonna have more attention. I imagine that the YouTube is gonna be a little busier. So I don't know. I just hope that they have prepared for that properly. I hope the live streaming experience is actually good. I mean, it's really varied over the years, whether it's been really good or kind of mediocre. And now we don't have the Star Wars show. We have the Star Wars live stage. Like we talked about that actually. We sort of found the answer to that. Was that last week we were talking about that? I think it
Yeah,
was.
last week we talked about that.
Yeah, now they've sort of shared that it's going to be the Star Wars live stage, or at least that's what some of the graphics and stuff they've released have said,
Yeah.
which makes sense. I guess that's what it was called last year too.
Yeah. So essentially, it sounds like they're going to be a mixture of some of them will be live panels, some of them will be like interviews with creators, and they haven't announced which ones are going to be which. But the fact that each day is going to be starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific here in the States does allow those kind of main panels that we talked about last week, Mandalorian and Grogu, Andor, Visions, to kind of have you had your day of work, have some dinner, grab a drink, relax, and then something's on. Like you're watching live
Yeah.
Star Wars announcements, kind of like an event, kind of like this very show, actually, hilariously. So those are all there. And then check out our show last week to see what we think about those main panels. But I think I want to get into some of the smaller ish panels. Now, there's tons of fan panels, tons of live podcasts. There's a link on our site where we kind of went through the panels. Go check that out because then if you're going, you can really get into the minutia of what's on what day and things like that. But there's a couple bigger medium panels that we always get excited for that got confirmed. The first of which being 2 Lucasfilm Publishing panels. And one of them is a little unique this year. The first one is the Lucasfilm Stories from a Galaxy Far, Far Away. This is your books. This is the finale of the High Republic will be talked about. We'll probably get some Marvel Comics stuff, things like that. But then another one that we're going to have is all about manga. An entire panel about manga, and this is day one, I believe. So I kind of want to ask you guys about the manga one first because we've gotten some High Republic manga, and now we had that new manga that's officially coming out in the sequel trilogy. But that's it.
Yeah.
That being
It's
said,
interesting.
does this
Maybe
mean that
they're,
we're getting?
I don't
Is this a
know.
new thing? Like
Are they
for
rolling
years?
it out? Are we gonna have to add this as a new category in our book database? That would be awesome,
What do you think?
frankly. I don't know. I could definitely see it. the only manga I've ever read is the Lost Stars, the first one. Isn't it
Oh
three? Is it
yeah,
three or is it
there's
two? I
three
think it's
now. Yeah,
yeah, there's three.
there's three
Yeah,
now.
I read the first one because that came out a long time ago, and then there was a big gap before they made any others. That's the only one I've ever read. It's very good. Manga is a very specific art form, genre, everything. It's not my. I'm more of a graphic novel person if I were to choose
Hmm.
that like one of those types of styles, I guess. But I don't know. That's very interesting. I mean, surely they're not just going to talk about the six or whatever they've done in
No,
a
I
whole
mean,
panel about that. I mean, surely there's
no.
going to be some announcements and stuff,
Yeah, they
right?
say all new announcements and reveals. So
Okay.
there's something coming, and I wonder if this is a line or this is a hey, we saw that people actually want to keep buying this. I mean, we saw this with anime and manga and non-Star Wars the last 15 years. Like Barnes and
For
Noble, you
sure.
go in, it's an entire section. Like Wes, I know
It's
you similarly haven't been a huge manga head, but what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think it specifically relates to Japanese writing, so that's
Mm-hmm.
probably a piece that they're trying to highlight based
Mm-hmm.
on cultural aspects that's over there. So, I mean, I think that's a great idea to introduce a lot of people to that because I know there's going to be a lot of tourists there, a lot of people who aren't like originally from Japan to come in for
Yeah.
Star Wars Celebration, and maybe they'll get into that, especially with people who are into comics. That's probably a good stepping stone to start with the manga because they're I think they're obviously a little longer like graphic novels, so maybe that's it's a good start to get people into it. Especially if you have 2 hours to talk about it. I'm sure you have quite the
Yeah.
persuasive speech to get everybody ready to go with it. So yeah, I mean I think it's a great idea. Why not?
Yeah.
I
And
have
I was
a maybe stupid question that I wish
go
Trevor was
for
on
it.
the show that could answer it for us. Are we like actually just ignorant and there already is Star Wars manga that's just not in English?
There have been all the English manga adaptations started Japanese. So like the Lost Stars one was originally Japanese and then they translated it. A lot of manga does that. As
Hmm.
far as I know, in our database stuff and as like official sources at least, all they've had is the High Republic ones, this upcoming
Hmm.
one, and the adaptations of Leia, Princess of Alderaan, and Lost Stars.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
I think,
you're right.
yeah,
I see a lot of the original movies. They have A New Hope. They have The Empire Strikes Back, Return
Yeah.
of the Jedi. But it doesn't look
yeah,
like
yeah.
a lot are on there. It looks like it's fairly
Yeah.
new.
Not a lot of original stories too, and I
Hmm.
think that's what's and obviously, I mean, hey, if we know anything, it's that a lot of the Star Wars business, you follow the money, right? So it means
That's
this
For
right.
is clearly
sure.
selling well what they have so far, enough that they want to put a panel on pretty good time. So this is the first day, right? Mandalorian and Grogu is 10 a.m. Japanese Standard Time on Friday. Manga Mania is at 12 p.m. So this is still 11 p.m. or oh my gosh, nope, I'm already off. Yeah, it's 11 p.m. the
It hurts
night
my
before,
brain.
so a lot of people could still be up in the States kind of following along. This is still pretty good timing. And then 2 hours later that same day, then we had the regular publishing panel. So they're
Hmm.
starting with some manga off the height of Mandalorian and Grogu, going into books. And this is, they say the grand finale of the High Republic. Lots of writers there like Adam Christopher, Tessa Gratton, Lydia Kang, Alyssa Wong. And then we got folks like Mark Guggenheim, who's doing the Jedi Knights comic right now, Ethan Sachs, and some other people like that. I feel like this panel doesn't have a lot of people that we know from the High Republic because obviously that's ending, right? Kevin's not there,
Mhm.
Charles Soule, Claudia Gray, Justina Ireland, none of them are there. I'm trying to already temper expectations, but we
Yeah,
gotta,
I think
gotta, something's gotta be announced, right? Like what's
yeah,
coming?
I mean, if we were to truly speculate, hold a gun to my head, I honestly
Yeah.
think that because High Republic is ending, I think there's going to be a little bit of a sort of I don't know what you would call it, like an intermediary period here
Hmm.
that like we don't have a lot of big heavy hitting stuff like come out honestly maybe for the
Yeah.
next like 6 months to a year because books take forever to I mean it's like a long time like say a movie right a long time when
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
come out from inception to print right so I honestly don't really expect there to be a ton of massive new series announcements immediately I
Yeah.
guess in the book world like
Maybe like some tide overs, like a couple like here's one or two books that are coming out to
yeah
kind of like
yeah
get us
now
through.
I wouldn't be surprised if they gave us like a name of a trilogy or something that's supposed to be coming out in like 2027 or something like that, maybe necessarily. That wouldn't really surprise me that much if they like announced it initially. And like, hey, we just signed the contracts, it's coming here. I wouldn't be surprised if we get that kind of announcement, but I don't think that's going to be like the the keynote, the headliner of these panels.
All right.
We'll see though. What do you guys think?
I think that the Mask of Fear, or not Mask of Fear, the Reign of the Empire trilogy that Freed just started, I think you're right. That's probably going to be like tiding us over for the immediate future. I think we get at least one or two like a single standalone novels. I think that's I like your idea of the intermediary thing between big events. Like, hey, maybe once Mandalorian and Grogu we get closer to that, we're going to get a lot of tie-in material, and that'll be announced a little bit later down the line. Or what about this? Adam Christopher's on the panel, right? Follow me on this tinfoil hat. Adam Christopher famously wrote an entire Mandalorian novel that got shelved, that never made it to print.
That's right.
And then he came back for Shadows of the Sith. He clearly knows the Mandalorian character well. Is this where we say, hey, next year, the Mandalorian and Grogu's coming out in theaters, but this fall, a Mandalorian and Grogu adventure book?
Journey
we're gonna cancel.
Yes. Mandalorian Grogu. Yeah.
I'll call that.
There's
will be a tie-in something this fall winter. That we'll get
there's an episode of Futurama. Futurama famously has been canceled a bunch of times, right? There's an episode of Futurama where they go and like Matt Groening is on a panel at like a comic book convention, and creator of The Simpsons, creator of Futurama, and he's like, we have to announce a new show, and they start to roll the trailer, and the title happens, and then there's a canceled over it. It's like, oh, we just found out Fox has already canceled the show. that's what's gonna happen.
That's what this book
they're gonna announce this this Mandalorian book, and then somebody's like gonna come in and whisper in his ear while he's still on the mic. He's gonna be like, hey, what are you saying? Oh, it's already canceled. But I haven't even started. I'm still gonna get paid. Sorry, folks. Turns out book is actually coming out.
Would have loved to. Sorry.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll see. I mean, again,
that's a good call,
early.
Eric. That's a good call.
Yeah.
Because they had the journey to the whatever that they would started with.
Yeah,
so,
right. Every movie.
That's a good idea. I would love for them to have a First Order origin book, something that just blows everybody's socks off, right?
Yeah,
me too.
So that
we'll
would
see.
be.
I mean, I want them to take the gloves off, especially if. I don't know. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy's interview, last week, like, I guess we're plowing ahead on the timeline.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like we're telling stories in the middle. It sounds like we're plowing ahead, right? So, like,
yeah.
I don't know. If we're not going to touch this entire time period between, 6 and 7, like, give it to the books. Let the books do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
like
the books did the heavy lifting of Legends after Return of the Jedi. Let's just do it. Do it in the books.
Got 15 more years so you can deal with there. I like that idea, and I think that this is also just based on a couple past celebrations, but if you're stacking early in the weekend, you got a pretty good amount of confidence in the panel. Like, day one, Mandalorian and Grogu, obviously heavy hitters, and the fact that we're getting Mandalorian and Grogu manga and publishing in the first 4 hours of the first day of the first Star Wars celebration in 2 years,
yeah,
I think that shows that they got something cooking with it, because after that, the last big panel of that day happens at 3:30 Japanese time. Now, this is 2:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the U.S., so Californians, it's 11:30 p.m., so you might still be up. But this is the Lucasfilm Animation 20th anniversary panel. This is celebrating 20 years of Lucasfilm Animation, obviously, with some Clone Wars and things like that. And yeah, Dave Filoni's going to be there, and Athena Portillo's going to be there. Yay, this is great. But in the description, I bolded it on the site, including a sneak peek at what's to come. They're going to tell us the next show.
They're going to tell us the next show.
I'm
I know.
the flag right here. Day 1 of
100%.
Celebration, we're going to know the next show. You're going to wake up on Saturday morning, everybody, and know the next show.
They are not bringing out Dave Filoni, Chief Creative Officer, and Portillo, Vice President of Animation, a VP. They flew a VP all the way out to Japan for this, and then put that in the thing. Yeah, they're for sure going to talk about a new show. And the big question is, what the heck is it?
I think we go. You got me drinking the Kool-Aid now, man. I think we plow forward. I think it is outside Mandoverse. I think it is not Clone Wars, not Republic. It is Clone Wars animation style, level quality in the 10 years before Force Awakens.
And call it They should call it the New Jedi Order.
And they should do
That should
it.
be
Or Force Away. Oh yeah,
that should be the name of the show. The name of the show is
It's-
called The New Jedi Order. It's in the style of the Clone Wars. It's done in the engine that they did Bad Batch in, and it's about Luke's Jedi Temple. That's what it is.
Or better yet, it's after Luke's Jedi Temple. It's a 5-season series all about him on Octo with the green boob milk. It's
Oh
5
my
seasons
God,
long,
please.
and it's just that.
Yeah,
Or
we're only 16 minutes into the show, and Eric already said boob
Boob
on this
milk, yeah.
podcast. Like, what the hell?
It's live action with animation, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So they're gonna have
Oh my
they're
Mark
gonna
Hamill
have
just walking around.
Oh my God, that's awful. I hate
Oh,
that.
come
Actually,
on.
I absolutely hate that.
I
That's the
love
worst
that
idea.
movie.
That's the worst idea you've ever had on the show.
Yeah,
Ash,
that
I
is
think.
pretty awful.
I know for a fact that's not true, but okay.
I will say, we don't have any inside information, obviously, on what the show is, but I have a guarantee that you can take to print. If you're betting on things with your friends, you're gonna make some money on this. Whatever show is announced, it will be both an awesome thing and also the worst idea anyone's ever had, according to the internet.
That is correct.
People will say, "Oh my God, why wasn't it clones?" Or "Oh my God, I'm so sick of clones." Or "Ah, these
What if
characters
they-
suck." Or "Oh, my babies are back." Like it's
What's
just,
what's the worst idea they could possibly do?
like legitimately a show they could
Yeah.
make, but that would
Yeah, like make everybody just be like, "What the hell?" Maybe reboot the Clone Wars entirely.
Did
where
you-
you can
Yeah,
start
it-
over.
Did you see what?
it takes place before the Clone Wars, like early on in the Clone Wars, like
Yeah,
day
yeah.
one, before the
Yes.
movie happens. So Ahsoka's not even there yet. Rex isn't there yet. It's like Anakin just being super annoying.
I don't want to call
sounds good.
JG out in the chat or anything, but maybe that could be an idea that won't actually happen. Resistance season 3.
Oh, surely
We
not.
decided we already
I
made it.
mean, yeah, I guess so. Like, surely they wouldn't do it.
I will say my actual prediction. I think that I actually feel good about. It'll have a recognizable main character of some sort. Like Clone Wars had Anakin and Obi-Wan. I'm talking like a legacy something. There will be a foundational main character, because I think whenever they tried to, like, Rebels was a little bit of an anomaly. It was on Disney Disney XD, so that, like, kids got to watch it live. So it was a little bit of a different beast. You didn't have to rely so much. But I think for animation to come back in a big way, the Bad Batch was from Clone Wars already. Resistance kind of had Poe, but they had Kaz, and people didn't respond to him as well. Like, I think we got to have a
What would
legacy
they even
character
do?
star.
I mean, like what? What would they possibly do? Just continuation of the story after Return of the Jedi? That would be dope. And we talked
That'd
about
be
that
dope,
a couple weeks ago,
honestly.
actually. Like,
But I think it's too filled right now with like the comics are right there, and they're gonna stay there for
not
the next year or
not
two.
post Rajay though, right? Like it's not that
Yeah,
much.
that's what's happening right
Yeah,
now.
but
They're starting.
I know, but there's
That's
not
fine.
that. What I'm saying is like they haven't gone that far forward yet. Is what
Okay,
I'm trying to
yeah,
say.
right,
like
right.
so, like
Yeah,
like
they're about to.
Yes, exactly. So I still think there's quite a bit of. We had such a huge gap of time, like 30 years in this time period that is like relatively untouched, other than a handful of stories and comics. So like,
Yeah.
there's room
Some
for
rebellion.
sure.
So Rebellion New Republic, I think, is might be where they want to live, because I think that Rey and all that kind of stuff, that's not going to happen till her movie. You don't start a time period in animation. I think you start it
No,
on a
it's a
movie
terrible
and then you
idea.
fill it in.
I mean, I'm super down for animated Han Solo. That sounds
Yeah.
super fun.
Absolutely, man. Bring
Yeah.
Alden back. Have him do it, man.
Han and Leia right after the breakup, or right before the breakup, and then they have the
Before the
breakup as a season premiere.
Oh my god.
I'm into it.
Hmm.
But that'll be Friday, aka late Thursday night. But one more panel I just want to chat with you guys about is the panel that is going to be on Saturday, 4:30 p.m. Japanese time, which again, this will be Saturday morning, 3:30 a.m. Eastern.
Oh my god.
So you'll get this as you wake up. It is the Bit Reactor Developer Panel featuring Respawn Entertainment and Lucasfilm Games, where we will join Bit Reactor along with Respawn Entertainment and Lucasfilm for a first look at the new Star Wars turn-based tactics game. This is the reveal of Star Wars Civ, baby.
I am really excited for this. Empire at War was very fun. Did you guys ever play that on the computer? Empire
I
at
did
War?
not. No.
Nope.
It's still
that was before my
still
PC gaming days.
still pretty solid. From the sort of mid 2000s. I bet it came out in like 2008. I don't know. Wes, you should look. Tell me when it came out. 2008 is my
right.
guess. Really fun game. The biggest problem the game had is that the ground-based game did not let you put enough units on the map, so it felt really constrained. And I guess it was just early computing days, right? So there wasn't,
Right.
so that game like taught me how to mod games because like I learned how to install mods and how to adjust it so you could have like 100 people instead of like 10. Whatever the count
2006.
was.
2006.
Hell yeah, dude!
So
I knew I was close.
You're right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like
So you
Command
got
and
a little bit
Conquer,
of time now.
StarCraft. Yeah, okay. So I see
Yeah.
what you're
Exactly.
saying now.
It's fun.
So
The space stuff was super fun. Like you could like have you could like higher starter storage and stuff, and like when you brought them into the map, like to spawn them, they would come out of hyperspace, and it looks so
that's
cool. Like
That's cool.
That's
like
awesome.
they would show up because you could just make you could be like losing, and suddenly a starter store would come out of nowhere, and it would just totally turn the tide of the battle. Really fun game. Actually, we have some old video footage. I think we played that on like Youtini game nights on Twitch back in the day.
Oh
actually.
yeah, or at least we tried. I
Yeah,
know we did at least some and tried to-
I think Andrew Bell did actually.
Yes,
I think he played it.
yes. Okay, that's right. Yep.
Anyway,
So it'll be inspired from that, I'm sure. I mean, they're talking about this still like a full AAA game. Like they're putting a lot of resources into it. They say they want to make a Game of the Year contender. Like
that's crazy.
I'm interested in it, but I'm also interested that this panel is also going to have the folks from Respawn on, who famously are doing the Jedi trilogy. Like it's not a Cal Kestis panel. And obviously, I don't think they want to take the thunder away from the reveal of a tactics game because, you want to make sure that people are excited about the right thing.
Yeah.
Do we get some Cal Kestis info on it? Maybe
I don't know. Maybe.
Do they do the, wait, oh, didn't we have one more thing?
Yeah,
Let's
maybe
go down.
so. And we get a teaser trailer for the third game. Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, why else would Respawn be there? It's really not just to throw some interviews together and not have any reveals. I mean, every time that they do this type of stuff, they always have some kind of reveal. And I don't know. I mean, man, putting a lot of stock in a turn-based game is really ballsy from game developers. I mean, Civ 7 just launched a kind of a rocky launch. It's got a mixed rating right now on Steam.
It's a Civ launch.
It is a Civ launch. Turn-based games are hard to sell, honestly. So when they announced that this was happening, I did not believe that this was real. So the fact that we're talking about it at a celebration panel is pretty impressive. And I'm really excited for that. But yeah, I honestly think that something with Respawn in the Jedi series will steal the thunder a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think that's where we're going, but I'm excited that it's there, and I'm excited to find out about it. Again, as someone that hasn't played personally a lot of turn-based, I mean, it's Star Wars. I'm going to play it, so this could kind of open some folks like me up to it, and it'll be interesting to see how they balance the hardcore strategy of it. But, I mean, just give us I don't know, just give me a good old CGI pre-alpha trailer of like Thrawn coming in with the Chimera and then Han Solo on the Falcon and Gungans on the like, it'll be like the Battlefront trailer where it was all fun and everyone's mashed together. So we'll see. Obviously the full panel schedule is already out. Like I said, go check out the site, youtini.com. We put up a little write-up about it with some more highlights and a link to the full thing. And as we get closer to the dates themselves, we will naturally tell you everything you need to know the closer we get. Now, before we go any further, though, we want to take a quick second to let you know that this episode is brought to you by the United, the official Star Wars Youtini community. Now, by joining the United, you'll not only receive ad-free shows and exclusive merch drops, you'll get unlimited access to our Discord full of enthusiastic Star Wars fans that want nothing more than to welcome you. Filled with daily conversations, weekly polls, and monthly events, the United is powered by a community of intentional positivity. And that makes it the best place for you to celebrate your fandom and engage with fans who love everything you do the way you do. See what we did there? By heading to youtini.com/community, you can sign up for a whole year of the United and save 15% when you use code YOUTINISHOW. That's one word, code YOUTINISHOw, for 15% off your first year of the United. So, head over now and get signed up to check out your favorite... Oh, no, I messed up my teleprompter. Go ahead over now. We'll see you there with your other favorite podcast hosts. Thanks again to everyone in our community for their incredible support in the United. And now, back to the show. Now, for something that we absolutely won't hear about at Celebration, and we got some signs of life from Knights of the Old Republic Remake this week, guys. Back in 2021, this game was announced with an incredibly hyped and brief teaser, but unfortunately, in the last 4 years, we've kind of assumed the project was dead. However, this week, the COO of Saber Interactive, the company that took over the game's development, took to Twitter to confirm that, quote, everything that we've talked about is still in development, unquote. Now, admittedly, this might just be crumbs, but it's more than we've had in quite a while. Fellas, straight up, is this game coming?
No.
Okay, great. Moving on.
Next headline.
Just like, you're not a believer, though. He went to Twitter, Corey. Or he went on
Oh
X.
man,
Reddit.
this game's not real. It's not real, dude. I'm telling you, there's no way that this game is actually coming out. This game and Eclipse are not real games. They're lies. We're being strung along because we live in the Matrix and the corporate overlords.
I'm not the biggest fan of remakes. I mean, if you're gonna make something that is overly something that happened, you know, like a decade ago, then no. Let's make something new. Give it like you have a little, you know, some storylines from KOTOR, but call it something else, right? It's just like,
no, I don't want that. No, I want this game straight up remade. 100%. I totally disagree. I 100%
Why
want
do you
this
want
game
a
to be
remake? You
real.
already have the game.
No,
because
like Final Fantasy VII Remake, where they completely changed the combat system, the graphic. Okay, so what are you talking about? That's what you have no
Listen,
idea.
I think you're Wes. In all seriousness, I think in your mind you have sort of organized remakes as remasters, and I don't think that's what I want at all. I don't want a remaster of the same game, but I do want a similar story told in a completely different way. That's what I want because. The story in KOTOR is unfreaking believable, and is arguably one of the best games of all time. Just like period as a game, it's definitely in the top 100.
Okay,
I think it actually is.
Yeah, and what game of the year? 2023 or 20?
It did. You know, I there are some things that like I think you have to keep in the original KOTOR game. Like choices have to be still very important. You have to still be able to control your light side, dark side. I don't know if I actually agree that it needs to be open combat, Eric, like Assassin's Creed. I think it should still be turn-based.
It doesn't have. I'm earnestly thinking about like Final Fantasy VII Remake, where I played it a bit. Like it has some active combat stuff, but you still have the party commands. And I'm like, honestly, I don't know if you guys have seen. There's an upcoming game called Clair Obscur Expedition 33 for the Xbox that seems to be mixing real-time like button press quick time events with the tactical combat. That's like turn-based. So I'm wondering if we can kind of do some kind of marriage with it. But JJ makes a good point. Yeah, that like a lot of modern gamers, like if you weren't born in 2003, which frankly a lot of gamers aren't, because that was 22 years ago at this point, like picking up an older game that has pyramid texture graphics and the sound effects and the text look really cool for the time, but it had nothing to do with modern gaming, you're probably not going to play it.
Remember the guy?
Or the drugs.
and the Ithorians. Like every time you talk.
Oh, that was awful. That's like one of the only things I remember.
It's so long. He just talks about the Ithorians for so much. The turn thing. I don't know. Now that I'm hearing myself talk about it, remembering the turn-based game, there's no way that would work in the modern age. I think you do have to like redo it. Maybe like the a good comparison might be like the Batman games had a really good combat system that was like, it is technically open combat, but it's very much like combo based. So like you have to kind of do things in the same order every single time. That could maybe work.
They probably had a cover mechanic on it for blaster fire because, I mean, God, since Gears of War came out, there hasn't been a shooter without a cover mechanic. I think that if you can't like hide behind a door or something, people are going to not play it. But I think that's why all this is like why it's taking a long time to do. Like, because I think this takes a lot to design. But then you look at things like Silent Hill 2 that came out recently and like got nominated for a ton of game awards, like the old Resident Evils, like Final Fantasy. Like they're doing these and they're selling because I think that we have our nostalgia with the modern gamers that have heard they're good but never wanted to jump in. and overall, the only reason I think this made it as big of a deal as it did, because this quote did go everywhere. Regardless of what we're saying, people want KOTOR. Like the gaming community, they want it.
Yes.
Like, this quote went viral. And honestly, guys, we're talking about it on the show. This is a nothing quote. There's absolutely nothing.
It is. It doesn't say anything. They just said that the game is still in development. I know. I think like that's because KOTOR is like it came at a time period that like the landscape of gaming was changing. This was an Xbox original console exclusive like when this game came out. And it totally redefined what big RPG games could be, because it's a huge game and it takes a long time to finish it. The campaign is like 90 hours or 100 hours or something. Like it takes a long time to get through, like even without all the side stuff. So like I mean, I think fans will foam with the mouth for this. I think it's like if they were to announce a remake of Ocarina of Time, like Legend of Zelda Ocarina of
Yes.
Time. Like, I think this is like that. Like,
Yep.
not only is there a
It
ton of
is.
nostalgia for it, the game itself was really, really good. Like the story is really rich, and also like it fits into the modern Star Wars saga narrative of Jedi versus Sith. Like Revan is arguably the most famous Sith of all time. Like
Yep.
there's so much there that this game has going for it that I really do hope we get it one day. Like even if it is just a true remaster, like where it's like modern graphics and the story is almost identical, I would still play the shit out of that.
Yeah, and you can
I
still
mean,
play it on because I played it on my iPad. The first time I ever played it, I started it young and never finished it, and I finished it as an adult in like 2019 on an iPad
mhm,
because like I tried to get it for the Xbox, and you can't get it for modern consoles. Really, is the problem. Like there's a playability issue where it'll crash,
yeah,
or even if you do get it up, it's in a horrible perspective. Like it's not actively playable. So if they can get it
yeah.
to that point, I
Mobile
think
is the
that's
best
super
option
fun.
probably right now, and
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
Or they do it with the Old Republic animated series that JCJG said. There you go, we fixed it. It's Old Republic animated show and KOTOR remake 2026.
I'm rolling through some of the Saber Interactive games that they have worked on, and there's Crisis they've worked on. They worked on a lot of the Tomb Raider games, so they have that engine like just to, as a, I guess as a base
Those games
piece.
are gorgeous
Um,
too. Like those new Tomb Raider games.
They worked on a lot of the Halo games, like 4 of the Halo games. They also worked on one of the best games that ever came out, Shaq Fu. Have you ever played that?
What the heck are you
Tell
talking
me,
about?
Yes.
Corey, you know what that is. I don't even
Shaq
need to. I don't need
Fu?
to see a box art. I know exactly what
Yes,
that game must
absolutely,
be.
yeah. It's they worked on Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn. It's just that was
Yep.
like a Super Nintendo
All right, this
game.
is exactly
that came
what
out.
I thought it was.
Yeah, it came out in 2018 for the Switch. So but
Oh my
anyways.
God, you can get it on
Um,
Xbox One. How about that?
But there was a lot of games they worked on, or a lot of like shooter games too. So this might be like if they made it with the engine that they used in Crisis, like nobody could ever play it, and also like I think that's pretty intensive to do for a story-driven game that's going to take, like you said, Corey, like what 40 hours, 45 hours, however long it's going to take. So. Seems like a large game, but there's so many other games that you wouldn't even know. Like
I know.
they even have it listed in Wikipedia, the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake, TBA,
Yep.
Microsoft Windows and PlayStation 5.
What
It
the
takes
heck?
so long to make games nowadays. Like with the modern engines and stuff, that's part of the reason why AAA games have such a hard time and have to meet such lofty quotas is because not only are their CEOs all greedy, but like the amount of resources it takes and years you have to take to make something nowadays is so extensive, which is why some AA games are so fun that take shorter development cycles. But I don't know. I think they have one chance to get this right. And
I think
I'm
so.
glad to see that it's still coming out. And I know, hey, if nothing else, we'll play it whenever. We're around, you know? So I'm excited to hopefully
Yeah.
get that soon.
And you don't want to fumble
Hopefully
this because this story is so iconic, right? You don't want to
It's beloved,
fumble
yeah.
the next one that comes out, or then you might tarnish people wanting to go back and play the original game.
Exactly. Now, unfortunately, guys, even though KOTOR lives, it does seem to have sucked the life force away from another project because Star Wars Hunters is officially dead. Or at least it will be soon. The free-to-play multiplayer shooter seemingly took forever to arrive is being officially shut down on October 5th. Developer Zynga confirmed the decision to shut down the game less than a year after the worldwide launch, with the final gameplay update coming in April, and the proposed Steam launch seemingly scrapped completely. So guys, very basic question. How did this happen? Was this game truly just cursed from the start?
I don't understand this game at all.
I'm baffled,
Like,
honestly.
I mean, I just don't really understand what happened. Now, like, we had a pretty loyal following on our team of folks that like it was almost like a meme for years. That like a couple folks were like obsessed. Oz, from over on the Cosmic Force, and I was obsessed with this game, and like they announced it at I mean, I remember seeing they had a massive,
Huge
I'm never
booth
gonna
at
forget
Anaheim,
that.
right?
Yeah, I'm never gonna
In
forget
Anaheim,
that gigantic.
2021, yeah. It was one of the
gigantic
biggest booths
booth.
on the floor where you could walk
I know,
in and
dude. It was
play
like the. it was like one of the 50 or $80,000 booths that you have. That's what you have to pay to get the space, basically, at Celebration.
wild.
And like,
Massive.
yeah, and they launched it. It was really quiet. They launched it everywhere but the US for like forever.
Yeah.
It was everywhere else for like a year or something, right?
There was a soft launch in like, I don't know, 2021. In late 2021, they soft launched it. So after Celebration, and then 3 years later, they did a global launch in last June. Like, but they were soft launching, and the hype kind of went around.
I remember Adam on our team who was in Australia was like, I've had this on my phone for months, like years, and like nobody else can play. And it finally came out in the US, and they kind of launched it. I played it a little bit. Did you guys ever install it and play it? I played like 10, 20 games, I think. It felt like Valorant is what it felt like to me a little bit. Like, you know, you quick respawn, then you get killed, and you gotta like reboot. Like, I don't know, it was okay. It was just
but it was mobile only and the Switch. So like I didn't play.
I've never seen this. I've just never seen this before. I've never seen such a huge IP like Star Wars like have such a horrible launch just from start to finish, and then to pull the plug on the game like has it even been out a year yet? Like, what the heck?
I see a lot of people saying it was just poorly marketed. They didn't even, like, a lot of people are like, I didn't even know this game existed. And so if you don't know that it's there, I mean, how are you going to play it? And the hero, like the hero shooter genre, like Overwatch and stuff like that is, I mean, they came before Marvel Rivals. They had something there, but being on mobile, I think kind of hampered their expectations.
It just reeks of corporate ignorance to me. Like the whole experience just reeks of corporate ignorance. It's like, we want to make a Star Wars game. That'll make money. That'll make a lot of money. Let's make a game like Valorant where you have to like have all these things. That'll make a lot of money. Oh yeah, we need to launch it on mobile. Mobile is the most, that's the largest. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. That's the largest.
The Galaxy of Heroes. Like, this makes billions.
Exactly. This makes billions of dollars. This is the largest piece of the pie in gaming. All right, let's do that. And like, oh yeah, let's put all these new characters. Oh yeah, let's do skins. Oh yeah, let's do all these. It's just like they just stacked corporate decision after corporate decision on top of each other, and like it just created just the weirdest game ever that like it didn't really need to be made. It doesn't serve really any purpose. And like the game is not bad. It's kind of fun. It's like barely Star Wars. If you
the gameplay is fine.
You could swap it out with literally any IP and it would be the same game.
Are there microtransactions?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's how they make the money.
Of course there are.
Like, I think there's two fronts on which I think it failed, which is why, again, like you said, this was marketed for 3 years before a soft launch, or for a soft launch became a full launch, and less than a year in, we're getting cancellation. I think gameplay wise, it didn't do enough quickly enough. From what I saw from players that actually played it, like each season there was like a new hero and a new map, but there wasn't enough variety to keep players engaged. The passes weren't as interesting to keep people grinding, which is how these things survive. And then IP-wise, I think we're really starting to notice that Star Wars is really good, but you can't keep evolving a roster this much with new projects. Like, there wasn't a single named character from Hunters that wasn't in another part of Star Wars. There was no Han Solo. There was no Chewbacca. There was no IG-88. They were like, Galaxy of Heroes works because there's everyone you want, and then there's also Jocasta Nu with her lightsaber rifle, like we said a couple weeks ago. Like
even all the characters are just corporate nonsense. Yeah. Like, let's do a Mandalorian. Mandalorians look cool. Let's do a Sithy lady. Like, she's got a lightsaber. Let's do a droidica. Those are the coolest droids. Like, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, and they put out a tie-in novel, but it got delayed so much that the author of it, Marcus Shiro, didn't even end up publicizing it when it got released because the release date moved so much. Like, there was just so much internal strife with this. And now they were in the middle of, I believe, a Steam test to bring it to PC, which honestly, for this kind of game, was kind of a lifeline. Like, you had to.
Right.
Yeah.
And somehow the numbers must have been so bad. They're like, no, not even a full Steam launch could save this.
It's not really surprising with the amount of like studios that I've seen shutting down and like in the past couple years, and it's wild at like these big major companies like Ubisoft that just shut down some of their IPs and their video game, like Shroud's game that these creators had put in, like I think it was like $80 million or something, and that game just tanked. And it's not uncommon for these big IPs to shut down games if they don't work out. But I just think they don't give it enough time. But how can you, if you see it hemorrhaging money, you're just like, I can't take any more losses after, a few
for
months.
These that are, like Corey said, was just based on corporate desires and based on, again, nothing to the developers, right? They made interesting character models. They did a pretty good gameplay. They used, like, Endor was a map and, like, all these things. Like, that's fun. But if people aren't playing it and people are more interested in other hero shooters like Marvel Rivals, where I can play as Venom or I can play as 3, 2, 1, say a single hunter's name. Right, exactly.
No idea. Not a single freaking name. I know.
Jeremy.
That you make,
I just feel so weird and icky about this project. Like it really seemed. This caused a few people just an insane amount of stress for years.
Yeah.
Like they woke up every day thinking about this, being worried about it, trying to make it successful. They couldn't make it successful.
They're all
trying to answer to people that clearly have terrible ideas. Like I feel really bad for whoever this game shaved some life off of some poor corporate soul's life. And I feel bad about it because it's just a horrible idea from start to finish, honestly. And
I bet the developers
good riddance,
are trying to,
I guess, in some ways.
You had 7 months left. You have almost as much time as it's been around. You have almost that much time left. Like they announced this really far ahead, and it's October. So if you're a Hunters fan, you can finish the battle pass, the last one they're ever gonna have. I guarantee it.
Do you think? Do you think this would be one of those games that like the nerds port and you can download and play it from dark parts of the internet and install it? Galaxy of what's that game called? Star Wars Galaxies. Star Wars Galaxies.
Yeah, that is a mod
Galaxies has got a underground relaunch. That's gotten pretty successful.
I don't think anyone's rocking their days after work modding to get Star Wars Hunters on their cracked Android phone.
That's funny, dude.
I do feel bad for the developers though that put in all that time, and then they're like, you know what? Overtime and just thinking about it day and night, and then they're like, yes, we put it out. We got the product out. I made corporate, whoever happy for all this shit that he doesn't know what I'm actually doing. He just spit stuff at me. I make it in animation or whatever, make it work. Yeah. And then the damn game dies. And you're just like, man, all that work for those guys. It helps with developers. It helps them learn how to adapt to the new game that they're going to work on. So it just sucks that you put all that work into, and it just
it's not like a single player game where it's like, well, at least my work is here. You can no longer access the thing you made because the servers will be gone. So, but hey, for all you worked on Hunters, thanks for sticking in there. Again, people had fun. If you want, you can keep playing it for another 7 months with all the other dozens of people that I'm sure are on the servers.
There are dozens of us, literally dozens.
Oh, but boys, speaking of failed projects, we're going to end tonight by looking at a really fun, interesting story. Because longtime Lucasfilm producer Rick McCallum appeared on the Young Indie Chronicles podcast last week, and he gave us some new info on Star Wars Underworld. Now, Underworld was supposedly a live-action TV series pitched by George Lucas right before the Disney acquisition, but according to McCallum, it was quite a bit more than just a pitch, with 60 scripts written, a proposed $40 million budget per episode, and a violent, sexy feel that would have, quote, blown up the entire Star Wars universe and ensured that Disney never would have made a bid for the franchise. Now, guys, I'll be honest. This news kind of blew me away based on everything that George ever stood for regarding Star Wars being for kids and this budget. But before we get into the specifics of what Rick and some other writers said, what were your initial thoughts on George Lucas's violent, sexy failure?
I don't know how. Yeah, it doesn't seem. I don't know how all these years later we're still finding out about crazy shit like this. Honestly,
it's kind of cool.
It is kind of cool. What other secrets are there underneath Skywalker Ranch?
Literally, it's the ranch. What's in there? It's so.
I just don't understand. This was 60 scripts is a lot.
That's a lot to be just a side project kind of thing. Because he's always echoed that Star Wars is for kids, and then we hear violent sexy out of George.
Yeah.
Compared with George Lucas, just doesn't really
Yeah.
fit.
So like, and literally, he made such a point on that podcast. I went and listened to the clip of like, oh, Disney would have never bid on this. If this came out, they couldn't have touched this. I'm
Untrue.
like, what? Fair, right? We got Deadpool and Wolverine now.
You know what Disney
like-
likes more than being kid friendly? Money.
That's true. You know what, Corey? You're right. But yeah, just the volume of it was fascinating because I saw this. Let's set the volume and then we'll hit the budget because that's a whole other conversation. But 60 scripts, apparently, according to one of the writers who was on Katie Sackhoff's podcast, his name was Ron Moore, who wrote on Battlestar Galactica. He came out and said, oh yeah, I got a call from George while we were doing Battlestar. Or George's person's person, and said, hey, George wants you to come to the ranch. And he said, yes, of course, I would love to. And over the course of over a year, he would go up to the ranch with a bunch of writers. They'd get in a room with George, talk about this series, go away for 6 weeks, write scripts, come back, talk, go away for 6 weeks, and then they would like swap different people out. Some people got busy. But basically 18 months of writers' workshops at Skywalker Ranch with George Lucas personally debating what Star Wars was about ended with like 40, 50, 60 scripts that George was just going to shoot on his own dime, produce them fully, and then go to networks and say, hey, here's 40 episodes of Star Wars. You want to buy it? Like, that was the plan. And then the next year he said, actually, I'm going to sell to Disney. And it was dead.
That's like
insane.
That's very recent in the timeline as well.
Yeah,
like,
just like 10 years ago.
George woke up one day, like 15 years after making Revenge of the Sith, and was like, you know what? Star Wars is not actually dead. It's still very alive. And
what if it was sexual? What if there was more blood and boobs and stuff? Interesting.
By violent and sexy, he literally just meant 60 episodes of Padme in that leathery fireside outfit.
Corey, hold on. You might be cooking.
I know.
Let him cook.
You remember, it's the scene specifically, you remember where she tells Anakin that there's nothing to be tempted by and that, like,
yeah,
you can't love each other. How can we love,
Put her in this.
You're training to be a Jedi and I'm a senator.
I'm a senator.
Oh,
but
this doesn't make any sense.
60
this
scripts
is a lie.
Is a lot.
This is not real. This whole thing is one giant. This guy just made this shit up on this podcast.
There's multiple people. That was the crazy thing is that they're all
nope, they're all lying. It's the moon landing all over again.
This is gonna be the big reveal at Celebration. They're actually going to bring these scripts to life.
Because so they did shoot test footage.
Kennedy comes out on stage and she says, "You know what? We've made this whole thing and we thought that it just wouldn't be right if anybody besides George himself made it. George, come on out here."
We did it. We did it.
Does Disney technically own this?
No, I don't think. This is because they're produced. It was never.
Why not? Why wouldn't they own
made.
it? Disney owns everything related to the Star Wars IP. Do they not?
This was I haven't looked at the contract, but I assume this was never actually produced. This was never paid for, never sold. This is basically George Lucas fan fiction.
Just an idea.
Yeah, like they did do test
mean,
footage where you can see stormtroopers basically on Coruscant walking around with tons of people to check like visual effects. So it was.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that Disney owns. I think they own literally everything. I'm pretty sure. Like, I mean, they own all the props. They own all the resources. They own freaking everything. Like, I don't think George retained any of the IP. Like, yeah, maybe he has maybe he physically has the notebook like at his house or something. Right. You know what I mean? But like,
they break in.
Disney owns the product. I'm certain. Like, surely to God, like,
that's an interesting thought because they.
Are we ever gonna see this? You think? Are we ever gonna see, like, well, you think it'll ever be published? Anybody will get their hands on it? I mean, I want to know what the hell it is. Like, what do you guys think?
It might be, but they would never say it was this. They would probably never say it was this.
They take an idea. You know how we got that graphic novel like years ago of the Star Wars, where it was like the first script, but they made it a graphic novel from like Dark Horse or something. Do you guys remember that?
Yes.
And that's so it's kind of apocryphal. Maybe that, but like 60 scripts. That's like again right now. That's like 3-4 seasons of television minimum, maybe 5. And like again, looking at this interview. No, sorry. We got to jump into the budget. This number's jumping on me. $40 million an episode back in this time is roughly like $55-60 million an episode, which is over double of Andor. Over double per episode, which would make it $2.4 billion to make this show. And George was like, I'm going to do it myself.
What the hell?
I'm just going to do it.
That's insane. I just don't
Like,
what the hell was the show even about?
Guy was so rich.
What?
yeah.
What
We
is it
underestimated how
about,
rich
though?
George was, by the way, because he did it. He said he was going to do this before Disney bought.
Yeah.
So he had this.
I mean, he's
He
a
had this
billionaire,
money.
but like, I mean, kind of. Disney bought it for $4 billion though, so like that. This is half the
Yeah.
budget of the entire Star Wars
should
IP.
have said, hey, listen,
this one TV show.
I get
Listen,
to keep this one show.
Disney is upset that they spend $250 million on a TV show. Can you imagine a $2.4 billion TV show? That's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
George, why'd you do this? Well, it was fun. I don't know. I like there's like a really big action scene, and then a droid walks by, and then a guy farts, and then it's that's $3 million right
What?
there.
What was the show? I just don't understand. We don't know anything about this. It was dark and
Underworld,
sexy.
right?
It was gonna cost $50 million an
If
episode.
this show doesn't like leapfrog Avatar in viewership wise, then it's a failure.
It's gonna,
That's all.
Here's my thought though, because based on the timing, that this was like 2012, 2013, apparently when this was going around, because it was right before the talks happened. So like, this was also around the time 1313 got abandoned, and that was gonna be a dark, gritty Coruscant story. And this, based on the test footage, was like dark, gritty, violent underworld Coruscant. Like, was George just about to get really into a like Coruscant post Revenge of the Sith vibe? Like, was that his? He seemed like he was getting really interested in this whole aesthetic of dark.
Maybe he read the
underground
first couple of
Coruscant.
Game of Thrones books. When did those come out?
I mean, yeah. This honestly, they were out.
Were they Game of Thrones? I don't know
Yeah.
when they came out. Game of Thrones
It started in
books,
the
when they came-
90s, which is I'm so sorry, Game of Thrones fans.
96? Holy shit.
Corey,
Okay,
he's taking a long time with that book.
96. All right, yeah. George read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them actually. All of them. That's every book. Actually, he read all of them. He just yes. Okay.
Game of Thrones fans have been waiting the entirety of the Disney acquisition for the 7th book, by the way, just to put that in perspective.
I can see Disney taking bits and pieces of these scripts if they even have them. If they even have them, right?
They may
and
be
just making
gone.
it
They may,
something.
knowing George, maybe they were all written on like legal sheets and then like
No,
shredded. You know what I
he's
mean?
just-
Legal pads.
No,
Yeah,
he-
could've
legal
been
pads.
He
That's how
yellow
he's
legal
right.
pads.
That's how he wrote.
He laid on his giant pile of money and just laughed and laughed and just tossed those things into the fire, page by page. Just
You remember the big golden vault room that Scrooge McDuck had in DuckTales? Yeah,
Yep.
you're the one. The theme song
Yep.
that was just George Lucas's house. They actually just filmed it
That's
there. I still don't have any idea what the show could have possibly been about. I mean, like what drug deals and like Breaking Bad in space.
Basically.
Like,
So if we look at it, I just double checked this. I wanted to Google this. There's 133 episodes of the Clone Wars, right? But those are animated, so probably half the size of this. So cut that in half. That's 60 something episodes of an hour. So basically, he wrote the entirety of the Clone Wars lengthwise in live action 10 years before the Mandalorian existed, and then just scrapped it. Like,
it says it was going to take place.
so
It says it was going
much.
to take place between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope.
Yeah, makes
So
sense.
like the Rebels period.
Yep, Underground Jedi, probably Order 66 survivors, like all the stuff that we've kind of gotten in comics. I think he was gonna shoot in live action.
have we
You know?
actually seen
I just
part of
don't-
the scripts and they just
No,
child
I
like
don't think
no
so.
they didn't actually make it like violent and sexy, but they used the
Coincidentally.
storyline like in parts of we'll
And-
say like animation. They say even part of like Mandalorian. They just use
Yeah.
like pieces of this. It could happen. I don't know. This is all
It's not
speculation, right?
impossible.
Yeah.
It's not
This
impossible, but
like looking at the details too in this interview, like it also just sort of has those vibes of like some guy that was kind of in on something, sort of talking out of his rear end a little bit, like to some degree.
I mean,
like, I know it's Rick.
McCallum is like one of
I
the
know it's Rick
biggest
McCallum.
producers in history.
I know it is, but like he gave no details in this interview at all.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. He says stuff like it's gonna blow up. It would have blown up Disney. That's what people say. That like I don't know.
Trying to get
It's moon
eyes
landing.
on their product.
I know moon landing.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. I don't know.
I know it's. I mean, to your point, I don't think we're ever gonna see it. I don't think we're ever
No.
gonna see this. But it's
Yeah.
fascinating to know that George.
How has nobody else talked about it ever? How has nobody
No,
talked
no,
about this in like
It
15
got,
years?
It got the test footage got leaked a couple years ago, but it was like
Oh, the
quiet.
Underworld.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was just stormtroopers walking around. So test footage is boring. Like we see whenever we see quote unquote test screening previews, these are heavily edited. Like regular test footage
that rings
sucks.
a bell. That does ring a bell, actually. Now that you mentioned that.
So I think, if nothing else, knowing that George was creating this much stuff and not putting it out, like it not to make it, oh, everything George did was great, everything now sucks. That's stupid. It's reductive. Everyone's fallible. Everyone's great. But the fact that he's like, I'm going to write 60 scripts before putting a single thing on camera, before hiring an actor, before doing a season, like this was not a man interested in studio executive notes and getting renewed because of subscriber counts. He's just like, I have a full thing. I'm just going to shoot this whole thing for fun. And then I'm going to sell it to, I don't know, Fox or something and say, hey, do you want this? No? Cool. I'll go next door.
It's always Fox.
It's always Fox. It's just it is such a time capsule of George Lucas somehow being the dumbest businessman that stumbled into being a billionaire. Like every decision he made about business is terrible. Through his whole career.
I pulled up the test footage that you linked in our article. It looks awful. I mean, it looks like
it's test footage.
It looks like Battlestar Galactica, honestly.
Yeah.
It looks like crappy
TV effects.
Crappy sci-fi, honestly. This is nuts.
No. It would have been bad. And George Lucas writing, like, again, we love George. He did this. George Lucas trying to write sexy violence. We didn't even say cringe back then, but we would have. We would have started.
Yeah.
Like,
we'd had a bite.
Like, Boba Fett comes down looking for a bounty, and a Twilight comes up and says, hey, big boy, where you taking all that muscle? Like, that's a George Lucas line. You know what I mean? Like,
okay, so
60 episodes.
Do we? Okay,
I'm not
sure that we are like totally considering all the implications of this. If let's just think about this for a second.
Here we go.
Let's just pretend. All the pieces have just finally come together in my mind. Let's just pretend for a second in 2010. In 2010, George is making this. Like, this is actually being this. There's test footage. He assembled actors. He interviewed. Like, they filmed the shit. Like, if he had made this and spent $2 billion on creating this TV show, and it was absolutely horrible. This would have destroyed the entire Star Wars IP.
Yes, they don't sell.
It would have bankrupted Lucasfilm. George Lucas would be like Jar Jar is in the Aftermath series when he's like a beggar on the street. That would have been George. And like Star Wars would be effectively and intellectually property wise dead. 100%.
Yep. No more books, no comics, no shows, no 7, 8, 9, no nothing.
How
kind of wild?
Wow,
huh?
How violent and sexy are you thinking, Corey? Like that to destroy the whole franchise?
No. It's bad is the problem.
Yeah,
it's not good.
Okay,
it's like shitty sci-fi that doesn't make any money. And like
people
there's no way he would have recouped his losses on this. Nobody would have paid $4 billion
an episode. Nobody would
have paid that. Nobody had that kind of money. Like,
that's got to be untrue. That's got to be something. That's got to be a rounding error somewhere. That can't be right.
So what? The nearest 40?
Come on, like 2.4 billion for the series. Get the hell out of here.
Because he said he was gonna make the whole thing and then sell it. So like he would have put in all the money up front, and he had to get paid that much by who? The Sci-Fi Channel? Like
that's what I'm saying. Like there's nobody that would
Star Wars Sharknado.
No.
All right. As of October 2024, George Lucas is estimated to have a net worth of around 7.7 to 9.4 billion. So he had the money before
crap.
Yeah.
He had the money before Disney.
But that's in the
Disney
addition to the
it.
4.5 that he made off Disney. So if you take away that, this would have been about half his net worth. He's still fine, guys. But he's still like very rich. But Star Wars itself, I mean, it would have bankrupted the companies. Like unless he footed the bill himself and just ate all that cost, which rich people don't do that. So like he would have written all this off into the ground, and that would have been the end of Star Wars for real. Like that's crazy. Clone Wars would have gotten canceled and wouldn't have gotten revived.
This almost destroyed the entire franchise. do you think
conclusion with?
Yes, that is what I. Do you think somebody sat George down and like duct taped him to a chair? Somebody that was involved in like his net worth and his family, and like, do you think somebody duct taped him in the chair and like put duct tape over his mouth and said, "George, listen to me right now. Disney wants to buy this shit, and you're gonna sell it. I swear to God, you're gonna sell it. If you don't sell this shit right now,
Do you not?
you're not gonna get out of this room alive.
Do you not see how this is going to ruin your legacy? And he's like, legacy. This is going to propel us into the next stratosphere.
This is it. And then didn't you read the part where the midichlorians are actually in the cells, and then I put another 12-year-old in the tube top?
Yeah,
and
what happened to that?
George, stop!
What happened
George,
to
you
that
need to
story?
That's when they started beating him with like a belt as he's tied to the chair. You're gonna sell Star Wars. You're
Give me your
gonna
hand.
sell it.
They make him sign and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Wow. Speaking of violent, sexy Star Wars, Youtini
this
show
is
every
episode one.
Monday night.
That's it.
Oh man.
Oh, God.
I'm glad this didn't
Appreciate
happen.
what we have, everybody.
Glad this didn't happen. I cannot believe that we found this out so casually in a podcast. What the hell? Like, this just doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
I kind of want to see it.
I just,
now.
I mean,
I'm
wanna read
eerily
the
turned
scripts.
on, Corey.
I really
watch the test
I want the
footage
script.
online. Look it up on YouTube right
Yeah.
now. Star Wars
it's on our article
Underworld.
on the site. Check it
It's
out.
in the article on our site, and it's the test footage looks really, really bad. I mean, it looks like this. What is this from? 2010? This looks like it was from 19. This is like
Yeah.
2001.
It's
This
gotta be
the
like
behind the
pre-alpha
scenes
stuff, right?
I know it is, but still, like the costumes and I mean, it looks like filming of the Phantom Menace, and it's 12 years after that. That's just insane.
Wild.
I can't believe
It's
this is
not great. Okay, I mean,
and
I'll give you that.
Instead, we got the Mandalorian.
I
That
know.
is what started
Yeah, I
live
know.
action television. Like that. These
Oh,
were the
man.
options. Like we waited another decade, and we got the Mandalorian, and we got Rey, and we got Kylo Ren, and this is the path we took, as opposed to 60 episodes of, because this is still when people were making the people versus George Lucas, and like the last thing was the prequels, which a lot of the adults at the time still wanted to kill him about. Like, oh my God, what a different life.
All right,
hold on a second.
This
Hold
is
on
all
a
right.
second.
This is an amazing
Can we
comment on this YouTube video.
Am I gonna get in
Oh,
trouble
yeah,
for
here it is.
playing this?
I don't think so.
I don't
There's
have
no
any audio.
sound.
There's no any audio on it, so yeah.
I mean, look at this. Is I mean, it doesn't look like Star Wars. It looks like it looks like
Great.
it looks like sci-fi TV show. I'm telling you,
say,
it's like
it
the
would run on the
sci-fi
Sci-Fi
channel.
It does look
You're
like
right.
sci-fi TV. You're right. Yeah.
That's
I'm
exactly
telling you,
what
dude. It
was.
looks like the Sci-Fi Channel. I know it's exactly. All right, so this YouTube comment on this video, you
Just
can scroll
a camera
downwards. There's
movement
like
at all.
there's like four. The fourth comment says, this was really a passion project, both for George Lucas and for us at Stargate Studios. I used to work for them back in 2009, and from what I saw behind the scenes, this was going to be a massive project. So many sets and costumes and new vehicles were already designed, and Lucas wanted this to be the Star Wars story he would be remembered for. I don't know if this is real. This is just some YouTube comment.
You'd be
I'm gonna finish
remembered
it.
for. You're already remembered, my guy.
He would often talk about how disappointed he was for what happened with the prequels, and this was going to be the redemption, so to speak. But since then, there was no way in hell we were going to get the cost of shooting this epic down to affordable budget. It had to be scrapped. It was part of the reason why he sold this Disney. With that money, he would be able to fund the entire show himself, as long as Disney and Kennedy would be on board as producers, but they, of course, let him go shortly after acquiring Star Wars. Now he has no stake left in Star Wars, and the show will probably never happen. Really sad. I don't know if that's true. That guy, he's some YouTube comment.
One of the
but
replies.
it tracks, though.
Yeah, I'm not gonna read all the replies, but yeah, I mean,
Don't put up. Yeah,
It's-
don't just trust putting up blind YouTube comments on our,
I don't know, man. It
live
seemed-
feed, my guy.
it seemed more true than not, I guess. Yeah.
No, I think it's probably true, but like, again, it's just a whole different life. Like Star Wars we're so in it all the time that I think we forget just how much of a miracle it is that certain things happen certain ways, and like, it is a beautiful creative experience that George got to make these scripts and got to think
Yeah.
this out, and people joined him and did all this kind of stuff.
It
But,
puts
like-
it in perspective too. I think about because we're constantly talking about numbers and how much money they spend, and
Right.
we balked at 290 million or whatever they spent for the Acolyte, and we're like, come on, just spend the money, it's fine. But I mean, it is always sort of on the edge in some ways.
Yep.
If you have 3 or 4 really bad hundreds of $1 million losses all back to back, I don't know. Somebody could pull the plug on all this one day. You never know, right?
Yeah.
They could just decide that it's not worth making money anymore. They don't want to do it. So, I don't know. Be grateful for what we got. I'm glad we didn't get this.
But what if the story was good? We always say who cares how much
guess.
it costs. If it's a great story, then put it out there. But we'll never know because, We won't.
Hey, if you were
It's
in that
burned.
Google Drive back in the day, someone, and you're watching, leak the scripts. We'll put them in our Discord.
No, we won't. Don't say it on
my
the air.
God.
We will
All right,
not put it on our
fine.
Discord.
Leak the scripts. Put them everywhere.
Give them to me
we'll
personally. I promise
There
to
it
keep
is.
them safe.
There it is. We'll see you at the Star Wars Underworld panel at Star Wars Celebration 2027.
That's what it is.
Oh my gosh. But this, again, every week we do this, I just kind of look at the show and I'm like, what a vast, weird franchise we have. Like, we have these definite big budget projects that are thought out in this giant thing in Japan. We had this remake that may or may never happen. We have this game that took 4 years and it failed. And now we have this massive enigma of a 60-episode, $2 billion project that might have killed all of Star Wars 10 years ago. And that was just this week. So everyone, guess what? We're a month away from Star Wars Celebration. We're less than that from Corey's big old trip to Japan, which I hope is setting into your brain, buddy. You ready to go across the ocean on a 19-hour flight?
Caitlin and I did sit down and talk. We were eating dinner last night, and we were like, we're going to Japan in like 3 weeks, and we don't know literally anything about what to do, where to go, or freaking anything. We did hire a travel agent, which we have an itinerary and stuff, but like we haven't like deep dived into it that much. We're so freaking busy in our real life when me starting a new job
got a
and everything.
19-hour flight. I don't know.
I know, like I hope my phone
Yeah.
doesn't die because then I won't have Google Translate anymore. Like I don't have one of those
Right.
little books. I should probably buy one of those little books, right? That say
Just in
like
case.
English to Japanese. I don't know. I feel like I should.
what your phone's
I am
for.
woefully unprepared, but I'm sure I'm not alone with that. So,
Yeah.
if you guys have tips for Japan, send them my way. I need them. Big time.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Well, gosh, what a freaking week. On that note, we'll be back next week with whatever else happens. If there's another mystery show, we'll be sure to let you know about it. Or if Star Wars Eclipse gives an update, we'll be sure to tell you that as well. But until then, that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Youtini Show. Thanks as always for tuning in for everything going on in Star Wars. We'll be back next Monday night, same place, same time. Until then, may the Force be with you.